Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is the Rock and Roll Spot coming at you. Today we're going to discuss some rumor control concerning the upcoming Deadpool movie, which was recently announced to have an actual release date of February 12th, 2016. First off, for the uninitiated, who is Deadpool? Deadpool is Marvel's Mark with the Mouth, an X-Men character who is mostly related to Wolverine, as well due to his involvement with the Weapon X program, as well as the X-Force team and its various incarnations throughout since the 90s. He is a Canadian mercenary who started off as a villain and pretty direct ripoff of DC's Deathstroke, or Slade for those who know him more from the Teen Titans cartoon. But his popularity, as many villainous characters gained popularity, especially in the 90s, grew to the point where he developed his own personality and is now much different from the character he was designed as a blatant ripoff of. He has sort of appeared in film already, as Ryan Reynolds portrayed him in X-Men Origins Wolverine in 2009, which at first, his early appearances were excellent, but then in the end, they drop ball very, very far. Other points about the character are that he is comically aware, meaning that he is aware that he is a fictional character in a comic book. And in fact, this is probably a reason the character will translate well to movies, because how many movies and TV shows, after all, have the main character addressing the audience the way I'm addressing you, for example? And so obviously he will more than likely be doing a lot of that in the movie, if whoever plays him. Now, let's talk about what is known, what is likely, and possibilities, and also maybe some questions too. First off, what is known? The release date, as mentioned before, February 12th, 2016. Valentine's Day weekend. I'm game. The director, Tim Miller, head of Blur Studios, who in fact, Blur Studios being the studio that produced the computer-generated footage that popped up a couple months ago with Deadpool fighting off a bunch of guys in an SUV, all while voiced by Ryan Reynolds. And apparently, pictures popped up online also from the mocap session, showing that Ryan Reynolds actually did motion capture for the whole thing, which lends some credence to the fact that he may be portraying the role, but we'll get into that later. And obviously the script is presumably done, since they now have a release date. Now, what are some likely things in the movie? One, Ryan Reynolds portraying Deadpool, as he did in Wolverine Origins, or X-Men Origins Wolverine. Very tongue-in-cheek, dark humor. It's not confirmed, but as he has been very vocal about playing the character and wanting to make a movie with just with that character, I would call it good odds that he's going to be playing the character. It will, as this is being put out through Fox, and Deadpool is an X-Men related character, it will most likely also be related to Fox's X-Men movies. How related is anyone's guess. Again, this is something else we'll get into later on. Another thing that will be quite likely is, as mentioned earlier, breaking the fourth wall, and doing so often. To the point of having long, drawn-out conversations one-sided conversations with the viewers. Now, some possibilities. Now, as it is an X-Men movie, more than likely we will be seeing a Wolverine appearance of some degree. It would not surprise me if Hugh Jackman pops up just for a cameo, maybe flips Wade the Bird, whatever. Mutant and, related guest stars, or guest appearances, I should say. Domino. Now, first off, Domino is a fellow mutant mercenary. Well, a fellow mercenary who is also a mutant. Her powers are luck based. The way it's usually described in the comics is things fall into place for her. She's referred to as Domino because of her chalk white skin, with the exception of a black circle around her left eye. She is just as proficient at combat as Deadpool, only a bit more serious, though she has been known to drop a quip here and there. And she has been both an ally and enemy of Deadpool's, so that will most likely be explored on both ends at some point in the movie, if she were to appear in the movie. Vanessa Copycat Carlisle. Vanessa is a shapeshifter who is capable of not only replicating appearances, but also, in the event of replicating the appearance of a superhuman, or at least a mutant, replicating their superpowers as well. She's also a longtime love interest of Deadpool's. Led to some interesting tales back in the 90s until she was killed off, sadly. Moving on, Weasel and Blind Owl. Weasel is basically Deadpool's tech guy. He's the guy that makes sure Deadpool's various gadgets are working properly. And Blind Owl is a kidnapping victim of Deadpool's, and probably the most well-kept kidnapping victim of all time, though no Stockholm Syndrome there. Let's see, Garrison Kane and Phantom X, as well as other members of other Weapon X related characters. Garrison Kane is the second character to take on the codename Weapon X, the first being Wolverine. Now, Kane is not a mutant, as to the best of my recollection. He was a mercenary who, in fact, worked with Domino, actually, and lost his arms and legs during a job and had them replaced by the Weapon X project. His new limbs he could shoot his hands off, and if or anything, just to punch someone from a distance or grab something from a distance. You get the idea. Phantom X is a French member of the Weapon X program, who was actually part of, if I remember correctly, Weapon 12. Weapon X actually means Weapon 10. It's a whole thing. But they never really get into that in the movies. And because they can't really talk about Weapon 1. Phantom X is a French member of the program. He has multiple brains, one of which is external and is a means of transportation for him. He's actually rather amusing character and would make for an interesting foil to Deadpool. Both being rather amoral, but at the same time having their own codes, so to speak. Next up, Slayback, also a member of Weapon X Project. Again, his history with Deadpool is that he was betrayed and left for dead by Deadpool years and years ago, and eventually came back to exact revenge, and then became dead. Now, character with a 50-50 shot, at best, I would say, is Tolliver. The short version is Tolliver was the most prominent employer of Deadpool's in his early appearances. The long version is that Tolliver employed various mercenaries over time, including Deadpool, Domino and Garrison Kane's group, the Six Pack, and Cable. Well, Cable was also part of the Six Pack as well, I might add. It turns out, however, that Tolliver was Cable's son from the future. Cable also being sort of from the future as well. And in fact, he was employing his father as a means of, basically playing a long game version of revenge. He's got some serious daddy issues. And finally, and maybe at best on this character, Cable. Cable is the centerpiece of the most convoluted bit of storytelling in comic books that I can think of. He is the best way to describe the short version, or to do the short version of this. Cable is Cyclops, the son of Cyclops and a clone of Jean Grey, who was sent to the future to survive an encounter with Apocalypse, became Apocalypse's worst enemy, and then traveled back to the present and helped the X-Men often. Yeah. Like I said, that's the simple version. So, like I said, I would consider Cable to be a maybe character at the very most. The reason why I would think he might even be in the movie is because him and Deadpool do have a extensive amount of history, both as allies and enemies, and sometimes frenemies. I mean, we're talking at the same time, you know, Deadpool being hired to take down Cable, while at the same time thinking of him as one of his best buds. Now, some questions about the movie. Will it be rated PG-13 or rated R? Now, normally with a comic book movie with as mainstream exposure that this has, PG-13 would be the obvious. In fact, Deadpool co-creator Rob Liefeld has been saying on Twitter quite a bit that it will be a PG-13 movie and that an R rating was never considered. However, the character, because of what he does, pretty much demands an R rating for it to be at least handled properly. But who knows? This could be done in such a manner that it is still accessible to most audiences, but at the same time has just that right amount, has violence and mayhem at just the right degree to make fans happy. An R rating would actually work for the character, like I said, because he is someone who will make various quips while engaging in all manner of violence. In fact, if you haven't seen the CG, the computer animated footage test footage from a few months ago, it's a prime example of why Deadpool kind of does demand an R rating. But again, due to the marketability of comic book movies and the lack of marketability of an R rating, PG-13 is a distinct possibility. And hey, the Deadpool comics, for the most part, are basically PG-13 comic books, and in fact have slightly more closer to PG, really, due to the fact that certain things are not permitted outside of mature readers' lines. Now, there is a mature readers Deadpool comic book, but like I said, there is just one of those, and there are a multitude of all, well, I don't want to say all readers, but teenagers and older targeted Deadpool comics. Furthermore, cast. This is, of course, already partially been addressed. Most likely, yeah. Ryan Reynolds will more than likely be portraying Deadpool. Aside from that, who knows? And in fact, I will actually, once large amounts of the cast are named off, I will actually make a point of updating you, my viewers, as to who will be playing who. And then there's also the degree of relation to the X-Men movies. Could this lead to further Deadpool? Could this lead to further Deadpool appearances? Something that's actually been rumored quite a bit on social media is an X-Force movie. Now, X-Force is originally a paramilitary mutant team led by, Cable, and in fact, Deadpool got his start fighting them often, even when they were the New Mutants. Well, once when they were New Mutants, and a few times when they were X-Force. Later became a mutant hit squad, led by Wolverine, and then other characters have stepped in as well. Deadpool has often been a member of the later incarnations. And so the possibility of having Deadpool pop up more in the X-Men movies could also mean there is an upcoming X-Force, that the X-Force movie that has been talked about could happen. Most likely, if it does, it'll probably be more based along the lines of Wolverine's Black Ops team than anything else. Anywho, like I mentioned, as once there are large amounts of updates about the movie, I'm not just going to share little bits here and there, but once there are a multitude of updates about it, I will make a point of doing further updates. Be back next week. Hopefully, quite possibly earlier in the week. It depends on a few things, but we'll see. Anyways, that's all I got for now. As always, live long, rock hard, rock and roll Spock, signing.